Hey guys, it's Drew again. You ever wonder, am I related to somebody who's famous, especially a baseball player? Well, today I want to talk about a baseball player who is related to not only one, but two of the all time greatest legends of baseball. The ball player I want to talk about today is none other than Hall of Famer Johnny Mize. So let's check it out. So, like I mentioned, we're going to talk about Johnny Mize today, and I started doing some research about Mize and just different things. We'll talk about why I got into that, but we'll talk about what I mentioned in the opening that Johnny Mize was actually related to not one but two different Hall of Fame players. In fact, two of the original five from the original Hall of Fame class. He was related by blood as a distant cousin to Ty Cobb, another Georgia native, and then he was related later in life by marriage. His second cousin actually married Babe Ruth, and in fact, from that point on, he would refer jokingly to Babe Ruth as cousin George. And so it's kind of interesting that he was related to two of the greatest players that are revered in baseball history, both Cobb and Ruth. So Johnny Mize, so he grew up in Northeast Georgia in a little town called Demarest, and he's connected very heavily to this college called Piedmont College, which is still there today. It's now known as Piedmont University. In fact, the house that Mize grew up in was right across the street from Piedmont College. Well, as a young kid, he would go out and play sandlot ball, and he got the attention of the coach for the Piedmont College baseball team, and actually as a high school student was asked to come out for the college baseball team because back then there was no governing body of saying who could and could not play on the team. So as a high school student, Johnny Mize actually played 2 years of college ball, and was probably one of the best players on the team. Well, this kind of attention and this kind of ability got attention, and he ended up signing with the Cardinals, and he went on and he started his career with the Cardinals. Now, so this was just after the Gas House Gang era, so he never actually won a World Series with the Cardinals, but he still played around some of these great players. And Johnny Mize looked at hitting this was his science, this was his thing, and you know the players would love their bats. They love them. They still do today. They bathe them. They're very specific in the lengths, the weights, the type of wood or whatever. And Mize was no different. But in fact, in 1940, he walked into the clubhouse at spring training, and there was 43 bats lined up against the wall. Each one of them were Johnny Mize's. And the clubhouse manager said, I can't take all these. This would be more bats than the rest of the team. Well, Mize looked at the clubhouse manager and said, how do you expect me to go to work without my tools? And each bat was different. He had them for different occasions, just like a mechanic might have different size wrenches or whatever, depending on the job that was needed. For that season, it was told that the St. Louis Cardinals when they would go on the road, the clubhouse manager had two cases of bats. One was for none other than Johnny Mize's collection, and one was for the rest of the team. So Johnny Mize, he just had some great years, and some of the things that I found out that were kind of interesting was Johnny Mize hit 6 different times in his career. He hit 3 home runs in a game, and that's the most by any player still in history today. In fact, only one other player has done it in both leagues, and the other one is Babe Ruth, or as I mentioned, his cousin George. So Johnny Mize also holds the distinction of he hit over 40 home runs in 3 different seasons, but he never hit between 30 and 39 in any season. The only other player to do that was Carl Yastrzemski. Another kind of interesting thing I thought, and I never knew this, was in 1941 there was a company, Gum Company, who produced baseball cards, and they had this new set, an idea for a set where they would take two players and they would put them side by side, and they're called double play. And there's not a lot of talk in the hobby about double play cards, but there are some great cards of some great players. I have one. It's not a Johnny Mize, but it is Pee Wee Reese, and this Pee Wee Reese is from his rookie year, like I said, 1941. And I kind of like it. I like the idea of it, that there's two players from the same team, a little tiny bit of stats, and then a great black and white photo. And but they only produced for 1 year. Well, one of the reasons they produced these cards for only 1 year is Johnny Mize actually sued Gum Company for using his likeness without his permission or knowledge. And while Gum Company ended up winning this lawsuit, it cost them so much in legal fees that they ended up never producing this set again. So there's a little connection to Mize in our world of card collecting. So Johnny Mize ended up going to the Yankees, and he was on the team as a basically a pinch hitter for his last 5 seasons. And in those 5 seasons, the Yankees won 5 World Series in a row. In fact, Casey Stengel loved him. He loved to platoon people, and he would put people in different places depending on what it was. And he loved that Johnny Mize was not very fast, and his legs had been shot, and his arm, he had an arm injury, so he wasn't a good thrower. But he knew he had the greatest eyes, and so he would send him up, and he was actually very successful as a pinch hitter and won all 5 World Series. Has those 5 World Series rings, all with the Yankees. And as I was researching more and more about this stuff, one thing that I thought was absolutely great was in 1953, in the World Series in game number 2, I believe it was. The Yankees went against the Dodgers, and none other than my favorite player, Carl Erskine. And if you know, Carl Erskine in that game set at that time a World Series strikeout record, struck out 14 different players in that game. But in this game, the 14 strikeouts, he struck out Mantle 4 times. Well, Carl Erskine was a great pitcher, and he basically his big pitch was his curveball. He had this big sweeping curveball, and Mize. The story goes that Mize was on the bench, and player after player would come back after swinging at balls in the dirt, and he was grumbling and complaining like, "Lay off those balls! You know, why are you hitting this stuff in the dirt? Those are in your shoe tops." And he was kind of complaining about it. Well, ninth inning comes up, and the Yankees were losing this game, and so Casey Stengel put in his great pinch hitter, Johnny Mize, and he goes up to the plate, and Johnny Mize ended up becoming the 14th strikeout of Carl Erskine that day, where he swung and missed at 3 different balls in the dirt. Well, as he walked back to the dugout, you can imagine, hanging his head low. And I just thought it was kind of funny that he's connected to this great game that I know so much about because I love Carl Erskine and that legacy he had. But anyway, so Johnny Mize, he ended up retiring, and he eventually in the 70s moved back into his childhood home, and that's where he lived until he passed away in 1993. And this house is literally straight across the street, and Piedmont College is now Piedmont University. And his daughter Judy Mize ended up donating a large portion of his personal collection to the university, which is now on display, and that's where you can go see the Johnny Mize collection. The student center is named after Johnny Mize at Piedmont University, and it was just kind of a cool connection. And I don't have. I started realizing as I was looking through this video and finding more and more stuff about Johnny Mize, I just thought was super cool. I realized I don't have a card of Johnny Mize, which is crazy to me. So I guess I need to look into getting that. But I do have one item, and I've shown this item off before, but it is an autograph, and it's an autographed baseball. And so here's my Johnny Mize autographed baseball. He had a great signature. He was really big in the 80s and then the early 90s in the show circuit where they would go around and just do shows, and he was always a very affable guy. And one of the players that he would go around with a lot was Ralph Kiner, and Ralph Kiner said that he was a great storyteller. So again, kind of a man after my own heart. But this Johnny Mize autograph, again, kind of an interesting local connection for me, and how I obtained it. So Johnny Mize, he lived up in this little town called Demarest, and he would do all his banking at a certain bank up there. And the bank president, because he was kind of a local hero or a local celebrity, she would deal directly with him when it came to investments and finances and banking things, and so he appreciated her taking that time to go in there. So one day the story goes that he went into the bank, and he asked for her, and she came out, and he had a dozen brand new white baseballs all autographed, and she had 2 sons, and he said, "Here, I want to give these to you, and give these to your boys or whatever, just as just a simple token, a thank you." And so she did, and she split the ball, 6 to one son and 6 to the other. Well, one of these sons had 2 sons, or have 2 sons, and so he gave his 6 to his 2 boys, 3 to one and 3 to the other. Well, one of those grandsons of this bank president is actually a friend of mine, and this is one of those 12 baseballs that were given by Johnny Mize to his to his own personal banker, and to my friend Daniel's grandmother. And I just think it's kind of cool. It's not really a huge connection to me. You can find Johnny Mize's autographs, but the fact that I know the story of where this specific ball was signed and how it trickled down into my collection, I think it's kind of cool, and it gives me a little bit of a connection to him. So anyway, enough rambling about it. I just the more I did about Johnny Mize and research, I thought it was kind of interesting. It's one of those rabbit holes you go down and you start making connections and dots, and it's one of the things about baseball history. It's like a spider web of connections to people. The fact that he's connected to baseball cards with the play ball, the fact that he's connected to Carl Erskine in that 14 strikeout game. The fact that he's, connected to me and my local Northeast Georgia history with a baseball and sign, and anyway, it's just kind of an interesting thing. So I just encourage you to do this. Find a player, Hall of Fame, not, and just go research. Take an hour and find out what you can figure out, and have some fun doing it. But anyway, there's some stuff about the great Johnny Mize, and just thought you'd be interested in it. But until next time, you guys be good.